Okay, so now you should be seeing my Acunetix screen. So today we'll be looking at the premium version of Acunetix. So starting off with the quick intro about the dashboard, it tracks all of your user activities based on the scans that you are running, the website that you have scanned, the top vulnerabilities, and also your activity that you are making use of the tool, such as the average vulnerability per target, the average day to remediate, the vulnerabilities found in the last 12 months, and also the vulnerability aging. Now, Acunetix is a very quite simple to use tool, but it's also quite strong when it comes to scanning applications. So looking at some of the scanning options we have available, we can also adjust the scanning speed. And the difference between the scanning stages will be number of concurrent connections that we send and the delays interval that we have. So for example, the fast scanning speed will send 10 concurrent connections with 0 milliseconds delay, while the moderate speed will send 5 concurrent connections with the 50 milliseconds delay. We also have the options to authenticate your scans by making use of a login sequence recording macro. So during the scanning, the scanner will make use of the macro recorder, and then will use it to also run scans on authenticated pages. So in this case, I'm going to replicate the steps of the user logging in. Next up, I'm going to restrict certain buttons from being pressed, such as the logout button. And lastly, I'm going to capture this session, so it will be as a base for comparing the session once the scanner is logged in or not. So if it finds that certain locations, such as the pattern found in the session, is not able to access it, it will then rerun the login sequence recording macro. We also support Selenium files and OAuth 2 authentication. Other features are available, such as the business logic recorder, which allows you to record yourself similar to what we have seen in the login sequence recorder, but instead for executing a particular feature, meaning that if you have a particular complex feature, such as a business transaction or adding funds to your wallet or doing, like say, a bet, so it requires a certain flow, you could easily do this by recording yourself executing that particular feature, and the steps will be recorded by the side. And if we press play, we'll be ensuring that those steps are now being replayed back from the start. So the moment it's running my login sequence, and later on it will now show me my BLR recording macro. So it's going to change, in this case, the name and other fields that I have configured during my BLR. Other features are available, such as the Accu sensor. Now, Acunetix is a black box scanner, so it's a dust tool. But making use of this Accu sensor, which is a gray box scanner, you will be working with a hybrid approach while having a dust and an IS tool, scanning your web applications. Other features are available, such as the exclusion of paths, import files, HTTP authentication, client certificate, proxy server, and other features are available at glance. Now, once you have configured your scanning options, you may select if you would like to run specific vulnerability checks or a full scan. You can also create your own custom vulnerability checks or custom-made profile on what vulnerability checks you would like to include, such as, let's say, SQL injection and cross-site scripting. You can also select what type of reports you would like to generate, either standard or compliance, which are available in both PDF and also HTML format. Lastly, you can also schedule the scan now for a future date at a specific time, or a recurrent scan. So scheduling a scan for a future date if you would like, and adding a particular frequency. So let's say a daily basis scan or a weekly basis, and also including the incremental option to only scan those pages which have been changed or edit compared to the previous scan. Acunetix also offers unlimited users when it comes to configuring mild user accessibility. So you can assign a particular user a particular role and then configuring this user to only have access to a certain portions of your target or one or multiple groups. Acunetix can also integrate with OpenVAS, so it can also act as a network scanner by making use of a well-known open source network scanner called OpenVAS. We also have 6 out-of-box issue trackers. We can integrate with GitHub, GitLab, Jira, Azure TFS, Bugzilla, and Mantis. So therefore, those vulnerabilities detected, you could easily then track them on your desired platform. Engine section. So you can also install the engine part of Acunetix on different machines. In fact, it's unlimited engines. So therefore, if you have any applications which are not reachable or are not yet public facing, are in the staging environment, you could easily install an engine on that machine. So therefore, you could also run scans on websites which are based not yet public facing, not reachable from the main installation. You can also create an excluded profile. So let's say you're going to scan a live production environment, although we suggest that you, until you get used to the tool, it's complex at the end and so on, you would run scans on staging. But let's say you're going to run scans on live, and on Friday from 1 o'clock till 5 o'clock, and same goes with Wednesdays, those are, let's say, peak hours for your organization. So it would make sense to run scans during that particular time frame. So you can exclude certain hours. So if there's any scans, it will pause and resume itself after the excluding hour profile timeframe has passed. If you look at particular scanning sections, let's select one of them. We'll have the overall activity, so Windows Defender is being used. So we also can integrate with malware engines. So for Windows machines, we can integrate with Windows Defender, while for Linux machines and Mac machines, we can make use of ClamAV to run the malware scan. That being said, Acunetix is available online and also on-premise. On the on-premise instance, it's available on Windows, Mac, and also Linux machine. We also have the scan duration, so how much time has taken to finish the particular scan, total request, average response time, and paths identified. We'll also have the target info, latest alerts, and also discovered hosts. If you look at the vulnerability section, we have all the vulnerabilities which were discovered during our scanning, and we can also filter throughout them. And just to give you an idea on, let's say, a vulnerability details, let's say cross-site scripting here. Now, whenever we have a 100% confidence level, we will also have our Acunetix verified, which is basically like our signature that we put in place, that we ensure that this is a vulnerability that we are 100% confident. This is not a false positive, since that's the main deal here. We always try to give the best and obviously the most accurate results. We'll also have the parameters that were used, the attack detail, vulnerability description, request and response, together with the response highlighting where the parameter was changed, impact, how to fix it, classifications, a detailed information, and also internal and outsourced web references. If we look at vulnerability that were detected using our IS tool, such as the AccuSensor, this gives you an extra detail, such as the exact line code number, and also the SQL query, which triggered, in this case, the SQL vulnerability. If we take other examples that do, let's say, let's go to vulnerability type, and let's check for directed traversal vulnerability, for example. this type of vulnerability, for example, and others are also available. It will not just give you an alert that the vulnerability has been detected, but it will also give you the proof of exploit, which is basically a sensitive data which should not be readable by the user, but the machine Acunetix engine was able to get that data in a non-destructive way and present it to your screen as proof that this is in fact not a false positive. You can also change the vulnerability's status, such from open to fixed, ignored, or false positive. Let's say fixed in this case. Now, since we have changed vulnerability to fixed, we also can have the option to retest the vulnerability, which will basically launch a quick scan on that particular vulnerability check to ensure that the vulnerability is in fact fixed. Since you could have vulnerabilities which are partially fixed, but still could end up as a vulnerability. So in this case, we are ensuring that each vulnerability will go to discovered to remediation verified. Looking at the confidence level, this is in fact a clear indication of how your team in fact can prioritize time and ensure that they work on vulnerabilities that truly need to be checked. And what do I mean by that? So let's say a vulnerability, a target, sorry. Let's take test PHP, which is one of our testing websites. And this particular website had around 105 web vulnerabilities. Obviously, if you have a one-person team, two-person team, three-person team, it will still take you ages to go through around this and basically replicate all the vulnerabilities. Which in reality, using our tool, this will not be needed. Since from your end, you can say that those vulnerabilities which have a 100% confidence level, which are a mixture of accuracy sensor, our confidence level, and the proof-based scanning, we can select them all and send them to our issue tracker. While those vulnerabilities which are 95%, which there are 27, and those vulnerabilities which are 80% confidence level, which there is 2. So we're now, instead of looking at all the vulnerabilities, we are in fact just looking at 30 vulnerabilities to replicate. And most of them in this case, we have informational and low severity vulnerabilities. So they're not a huge impact. They are not a critical vulnerabilities as we have in our 100% confidence level. Besides that, Acunetix also has one of the box integration with Jenkins, so it can also act as a CI/CD integration. And we also have a complete API documentation that you could use in order to make use of the tool. That being said, let's look one of our scanning reporting. So as I said, you also have the option to generate number of standard and compliance reporting available in both PDF and HTML. Let's see one of the comprehensive reports. And in the meantime, I would just want to go over the WAF export until the report is out. So we also support the ability to export discovered web vulnerabilities to your web application firewall. In this case, we support Citrix, F5 Big IP, Fortinet FortWeb, or Imperva Secure Sphere. So we can virtually patch your web application firewall based on the vulnerabilities detected. Furthermore, you can also export the vulnerability list and locations and vulnerabilities in CSV, JSON, and XML format. Let's look at one of our comprehensive reports, which is available in HTML and also PDF. And this will look, the first look will look like a dashboard view. So it will give you your Acunetix threat level, your scan details, such as the target, scan type, scan time, scan duration, request, average response time, and maximum response time. A summary of the high, medium, low informational vulnerabilities, and we'll also have all the vulnerabilities listed in our report. If we take, let's say, cross-site scripting, we'll have all the cross-site scripting locations which were detected. And when you see this verified stamp, it means that that is 100% confirmed. If we expand it, it will also include the request and the response. And on top, we also have the impact and the description of the vulnerability. Okay. In the scan profile, as I mentioned before, you can also generate you can also custom made vulnerabilities based on what your requirements are. So in this case, you could easily search and easily select what type of vulnerability checks you would like your scan to be based on. And click Save. And from our target now, we'll have the option to run a scan on that particular vulnerability check created. Looking at a particular issue tracker, so let's open, let's say, GitLab. This is in fact one of the issue trackers that we are able to integrate with in order to track our vulnerabilities. Okay. So from GitLab, we'll have all the info available of the vulnerability name, target URL, its severity. I think it's not. Together with the attack details, request, vulnerability description, impact, remediation, and also references.